So what would you say, in your opinion, that most buyers or sellers in Baton Rouge do or do not understand or misunderstand about the market in general, either history of or currently in?
I think the biggest thing, and this might not just be just Baton Rouge related, but really just real estate related. I think people try to time the market. And when you try to time the market, you never win, right? So it's always a good time to buy real estate if you plan on holding it for the long term, right? So if you're trying to flip something, yeah, there might be a good and bad time, but for the most part, there's never a bad time to buy. And when you try to time the market, you're always chasing something, right? Are you chasing the interest rate? Well, if you chase the interest rate at a certain point, it just doesn't make sense, right? Because if we look at the history, right? If we look at, we're in 2025, 2022 is when we started to see the market shift. We started to see interest rates go up, and all these people were like, "Oh, I'm going to wait for the rates to drop." And what we saw is everyone is still, although those people that were waiting for the rates to drop are still waiting, right? And if they continue to wait and they wait until 2026, when we think the rates are going to shift back down, well, what's going to end up happening is then they're going to be saying, oh, I don't want to overpay for a house, right? Which is what they were saying in 2021 and the beginning of 2022. They didn't want to overpay, and that's what's going to happen in 2026, is that we're going to see a lot of buyers come back to the market, and things are going to really start to stabilize, but then you might be in more multiple offer situations, and at that point, they're going to be quote unquote overpaying, right?
Sure. I agree with almost everything you said, and it's not about timing the market, specifically real estate. When you said a long-term play, it's about time in the market. So when people are chasing that interest rate and waiting for it to drop in order for it to make sense for them financially or affordability, the biggest issue we're dealing with now. But doing the math, if you look back in 3 years ago or 4 years ago, what that house was selling for versus what it is selling for today, you missed out on the equity and the pay down in principal and the tax advantages of owning that real estate for the past 4 to 5 years. So that is a common objection that we're dealing with, and I think it's interest rate sensitive. People have been waiting for the last 3 years for that interest rate to drop for them. Again, doing the math, it makes the most sense to buy the house if it makes sense for you physically, right? If the space fits your needs or your family's needs or your desires or your wants, but also financially. So if it's a house you can afford, don't wait for the perfect opportunity to present itself. And the likelihood that if you're waiting for that perfect opportunity, someone else likely is waiting as well. So like you said, when and if the rates do drop in 2026, I think there'll be a fire lit under a lot of people's motivation to grab that low interest rate. So your desire to wait for the rate, you might get a better rate, but is the house price going to be worth the wait?
Right. There's that cost of waiting that we often talk about, and you truly have to understand the cost of waiting and write it all down, put it in a spreadsheet, and see what makes sense. For someone who's, looking for something for just a year or two, it may not make sense, right? But if you are a first-time home buyer and you're renting and you plan on staying Baton Rouge for the foreseeable future, it just doesn't make sense to continue renting because you think that rates, or you want to wait for rates to go down.